Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my good friend and chairman on the Rules Committee, Chairman McGovern, for yielding me the customary 30 minutes. I appreciate it, and I yield myself as much time as I may consume. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, southwestern Pennsylvania witnessed the deadliest act of anti-Semitism in our nation's history when 11 Jewish worshipers were killed at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Squirrel Hill. That's the first time I ever spoke on the House floor. It was to condemn acts of anti-Semitism and hatred in all forms. No one should ever be attacked. No one should ever be denied their human rights or dignity because of their religious faith. Republicans have opposed hate and discrimination of any kind, including Islamophobia. But the bill made in order under this rule is rushed. It's a partisan effort, and it fails to address real concerns highlighted by both committee Republicans and the Biden State Department. H.R. 5665 creates a new State Department office and a new special envoy position to combat, and I quote, Islamophobia and Islamophobic incitement, end quote. Those terms are not defined in federal statute. They're also not defined in the bill. Without clear definitions, even First Amendment protected speech could qualify for an investigation. Under this measure, it will be up to unelected career bureaucrats at the State Department to determine what constitutes this phobia, and to single out groups, to single out governments, to single out individuals who do not share the political views of those unelected career bureaucrats. My Republican colleagues on the House Foreign Affairs Committee rightly noted the lack of definitions in this bill could be used, and that lack could be used to promote anti-Israel sentiment. Unfortunately, efforts to address those concerns were wholly dismissed by committee Democrats. Further, Mr. Speaker, committee Republicans highlighted that this bill is absolutely redundant. The State Department already operates robust human rights and religious freedom efforts, and those include, and I'll list, the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, the Office of International Religious Freedom, and the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. We already have offices for what this bill seeks to do. Creating a new envoy in office would simply duplicate those efforts. It would further fragment this important advocacy. It would increase the potential for conflict and delays, and it would thwart our efforts to actually help persecuted people. But their concerns fell on deaf ears. If House Democrats are serious about addressing anti-Muslim sentiment, then I encourage them to join the long-standing Republican efforts to hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable for their genocide against the Uyghur people. Somewhere between 1 and 3 million Uyghurs are currently held against their will in modern-day concentration camps in communist China. These people are subjected to atrocities that include forced labor, torture, and forced organ harvesting. Families are torn apart. The CCP even prohibits parents from teaching their Islamic faith to their children. Women are suffering forced sterilization and forced abortion to suppress Uyghur Muslim birth rates. Anyone who truly supports religious freedom and stands against anti-Muslim atrocity should want to hold the CCP accountable for their genocide against the Uyghur people. Yet earlier this year, Democratic leadership caved to the Biden administration and delayed a strong U.S. response to the Uyghur Muslim genocide, rather than sending the bipartisan Senate-passed Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act to the president's desk. It was the Biden administration who slow-walked that. Last week, we were finally given the opportunity to vote on that bill, only after the press highlighted Speaker Pelosi's inaction. Further, during the committee's consideration of H.R. 5665, Democrats voted down an amendment to focus the new office's efforts on the plight of the Uyghurs. In closing, it's obvious this bill is not combating anti-Muslim violence and persecution. If it were, House Democrats would have worked with Republicans in the Biden State Department on this effort. Instead, the Democrats are advancing this rushed, partisan legislation that fails to address the religious persecution happening right now in China and across the globe. I urge my colleagues to oppose this rule, and Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.